Okay. Angus drove us to the countryside and into western Long Island. It felt weird to be on a highway again. Annabeth and Grover sitting next to me, as if it were a normal carpoolers. After 2 weeks at Camp Half-Blood, the real world seemed to be a fantasy. I found myself staring at every McDonald's, every kid in the back of his parents' car, every billboard and shopping mall. So far, so good, I told Annabeth. 10 miles and not a single monster. She gave me an irritated look. It's bad luck to talk that way, seaweed brain, she said. Remind me again, why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. She folded her cap of invisibility. Look, we're just not supposed to get along, okay? Our parents are rivals. Why? She sighed. How many reasons do you want? One time, my mom caught Poseidon with his girlfriend in Athena's temple, which is hugely disrespectful. Another time, Athena and Poseidon competed to be the patron god for the city of Athens. Your dad created some stupid saltwater spring for the gift. My mom created the olive tree. The people saw that her gift was better, so they named a city after her. They must really like olives. Oh, forget it. Now, if she'd invented pizza, that I could understand. I said forget it. In the front seat, Angus smiled. He didn't say anything, but one blue eye on the back of his neck winked at me. Traffic slowed us down in Queens. By the time we got to Manhattan, it was sunset and starting to rain. Angus dropped by the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side. Not far from where my mom and Gabe's apartment, taped with a mailbox, was a soggy flyer with my picture on it. Have you seen this boy? I ripped it down before Annabeth and Grover could notice. Argus unloaded our bags, made sure we got on our bus tickets, then drove away, the eye on the back of his hand opening to watch us as he pulled out of the parking lot. I thought about how close I was to my old apartment. On a normal day, my mom would be home from the candy store by now. Smelly Gabe was probably up there right now playing poker, not even missing her. Grover shouldered his backpack. He gazed down the street in the direction I was looking. You want to know why she married him, Percy? Grover said. I stared at him. Were you reading my mind or something? Just your emotions. He shrugged. Guess I forgot to tell you satyrs can do that. You were thinking about your mom and your stepdad, right? I nodded, wondering what else Grover might have forgotten to tell me. Your mom married Gabe for you, Grover told me. You call him smelly, but you've got no idea. The guy has this aura. Yuck, I can smell him all the way from here. I can smell traces of him on you, and you haven't been near him for a whole week. Thanks, I said. Where's the nearest shower? You should be grateful, Percy. Your stepfather smells so repulsive. Humanly, he could mask the presence of a demigod. As soon as I took a whiff inside his Camaro, I knew Gabe has been covering your scent from the monsters for years. If you hadn't lived with him every summer, you probably would have been found by monsters so many years ago. Your mom stayed with him to protect you. She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to put up with that guy, if that makes you feel any better. It didn't, but I forced myself not to show it. I'll see her again, I thought. She isn't dead. I wondered if Grover could still read my emotions, mixed up as they were. I was glad he and Annabeth were with me, but I felt guilty that I hadn't been straight with them. I hadn't told them the real reason I'd said yes to this crazy quest. The truth was, I didn't care about retrieving Zeus's lightning bolt or saving the world or even helping my father out of trouble. The more I thought about it, I resented Poseidon for never visiting me, never helping my mom, never even sending a lousy child support check. He'd only claimed me because he needed a job done. All I cared about was my mom. Hades took her unfairly, and he was going to give her back. You will be betrayed by one who calls you friend, the oracle whispered in my mind. You will fail to save the one who matters most in the end. Shut up, I told the voice. The rain kept coming down. We got restless waiting for the bus and decided to play some hacky sack with one of Grover's apples. Annabeth was unbelievable. She could bounce the apple off her knee, her elbow, her shoulder, whatever. I wasn't too bad myself. The game ended when I tossed the apple toward Grover, and I got too close to his mouth. In one mega goat bite, our hacky sack disappeared, corn stem and all. Grover blushed. He tried to apologize, but Annabeth and I were too busy cracking up. Finally, the bus came and we stood in line to board. Grover started looking around, sniffing the air like he smelled his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. What is it? I don't know, Grover said. Maybe it's nothing. But I could tell it wasn't nothing. I started looking over my shoulder too. I was relieved when we finally got on board and found seats together in the back of the bus. We stowed our way with our packs. Annabeth kept slapping her Yankees cap nervously against her thigh. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth clamped her hand onto my knee. Percy, she said. An old lady was just boarding the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, lace gloves, and shapeless orange knit. Sorry. As the last passenger got on, Annabeth clamped her hand on my knee. Percy! An old lady just boarded the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, lace gloves, and a shapeless orange knit hat that showed her face, and she carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Dodds. Older, more withered, but definitely the same evil face. I scrunched down in my seat. Behind her were two more old ladies, one in a green hat, one in a purple hat. Otherwise, they looked exactly like Mrs. Dodd, same gnarled hands, paisley handbags, wrinkled velvet dress, triplet demon grandmothers. They sat in the front row right behind the driver. The two on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, making an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message. Nobody was leaving the bus. The bus pulled out of the station and headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. She didn't stay dead long, I said, my voice quivering. I thought you said they would be dispelled for a whole lifetime. I said, if you're lucky, Annabeth said. You're obviously not lucky. All three of them, Grover whimpered. Ah! It's okay, Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. The Furies. The three worst monsters from the underworld. No problem. It's no problem. We'll just slip out the window. They don't open, Grover said. A back exit, she said. There wasn't one. Even if there had been, it wouldn't have helped. By that time, we were on 9th Avenue heading for Lincoln Tunnel. They won't attack us with witnesses around, will they? I said. Mortals don't have good eyes, Annabeth said. Their brains can only process what they see through the mist. They'll see three old ladies killing us, won't they? She thought about it. Hard to say, but we can't count on mortals for help. Maybe an emergency exit. The roof? We hit the Lincoln Tunnel, and the bus went dark except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the train. Mrs. Dodd got up in a flat voice as if she rehearsed it and announced to the whole bus, I need to use the restroom. Sorry. So do I, a second sister said. Oh, so do I, the third one said. They all started coming down the aisle. I've got it, Annabeth said. Percy, take my hat. What? You're the only one they want. Turn invisible and go in the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe you can get to the front and get away. But you guys, there's an outside chance. They might not notice us, Annabeth said. You're the son of one of the big three. Your smell might be overpowering. I can't just leave you. Don't worry about us, Grover said. Go. My hands trembled. I felt like a coward, but I took the Yankees cap and put it on. When I looked down, my body wasn't there anymore. I started creeping up the aisle. I managed to get up 10 rows, then duck into an empty seat while the Furies walked past. Mrs. Dodd stopped, sniffing, and looked straight at me. My heart was pounding. Apparently, she didn't see anything. She and her sisters kept going. I was free. I made it to the front of the bus. We were almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now. I was about to press the emergency stop button when I heard a hideous wailing from the back row. The old ladies were not old ladies anymore. Their faces were still the same. I guess those couldn't get any uglier. But their bodies were shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bats' wings and hands and feet like gargoyle claws. Their handbags turned into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips, hissing, Where is it? What? The other people on the bus were screaming, covering their ears. They saw something, all right. He's not here, Annabeth yelled. He's gone. The Furies raised their whips. Annabeth threw her bronze knife. Grover grabbed a tin from his snack bag and prepared to throw it. What I did next was so impulsive and dangerous, I should have been named ADHD the poster child of the year. The bus driver was distracted, trying to see what was going on in the rearview mirror. Still invisible, I grabbed the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as they were thrown to the right, and I heard and I hoped the sound of the three Furies smashing against the windows. Hey! The driver yelled, "Hey, whoa!" We wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal, throwing sparks a mile behind us. We careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back into the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus. Cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow the driver found an exit. We shot off the highway through half a dozen traffic lights and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads where you can't believe there's so much nothing right across the river from New York. There were woods to our left and the Hudson River to our right, and the driver seemed to be veering toward the river. Another great idea. I hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full circle on the wet asphalt, and crashed into the tree. The emergency lights came on. The door flew open. The bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampeded after him. I stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. The Furies regained their balance. They lashed their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled in ancient Greek, telling them to back off. Grover threw tin cans. I looked at the open doorway. I was free to go, but I couldn't leave my friends. I took off my invisibility cap. Hey! The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at me. An exit suddenly seemed like a great idea. Mrs. Dodd stalked up the aisle, just as she used to do in class, about to deliver my F math test. Every time she flicked her whip, red flames danced along the barbed leather. Her two ugly sisters hopped on top of their seats on either side of her and crawled toward me like huge, nasty lizards. "Patsy, that's Jackson!" Mrs. Dodd said in an accent that was definitely from somewhere farther south than Georgia. "You have offended the gods. You shall die." "I liked you better when you were a math teacher," I told her. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies cautiously, looking for an opening. I took the ballpoint pen out of my pocket and uncapped it, riptide elongated into the shimmering double-edged sword. The Furies hesitated. Mrs. Dodds had felt Riptide's blade before. She obviously didn't like seeing it now. "Submit now," she hissed, "and you will suffer eternal torment." "Nice try," I told her. "Percy, look out!" Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodd slashed her whip around my sword hand, while the Furies on either side of me lunged. My hand felt like it was wrapped in molten lead, but I managed not to drop Riptide. I stuck the Fury on the left with its hilt, sending her toppling backward into a seat. I turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected to her neck, she screamed and exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodds in the wrestler's hold and yanked her backward while Grover ripped the whip out of her hands. "Ow!" he yelled. "Ow!" The Fury I'd hilt slammed came at me again. Talons ready, but I swung Riptide, and she broke open like a pinata. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get Annabeth off her back. She kicked, clawed, hissed, and bit, but Annabeth held on while Grover got Mrs. Dodds' legs tied up in her own whip. Finally, they both shoved her backward into the aisle. Mrs. Dodds tried to get up, but she didn't have room to flap her bat wings. So she kept falling down. "Zeus will destroy you," she promised. "Hades will have your soul." I yelled at her. I wasn't sure where the Latin came from. I think it meant eat my pants. Thunder shook the bus. The hair rose on the back of my neck. "Get out!" Annabeth yelled. "No!" I didn't need any encouragement. We rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering around in a daze, arguing with the driver or running around in circles yelling. Oh, Hawaiian shirted tourist with a camera snapped my photo before I could recap my sword. "Our bags!" Grover realized. "We left our..." Woo! The windows of the bus exploded, and the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater on the roof. but an angry wail from inside told me Mrs. Dodds was not yet dead. Run! Annabeth said, she's calling for reinforcements. We have to get out of here. We plunged into the woods as the rain poured down, the bus in flames behind us, and nothing but darkness ahead.